Oh no, it's not where I want it to be. Good morning and welcome back. This is Mr. Cantaloupe. So excited to have you guys. The screen should be full in the middle there in a second. Sorry for any inconvenience there. So glad to have you guys today. We got a lot to cover, but of course I want to wait a few minutes as we get some more people to join today. We got some cool stuff that's going to happen. It's going to be full of technical switches, and it's really going to test my ability and my computer's ability to do this. So I'm excited to go down this path with you guys. So good morning, Kylie. So you guys sit back, relax, and we'll take a couple minutes, and then we'll get started here right around 8:07. Feel free to say good morning in the chat bar, and I'll get with you guys here in a second. All right, looking forward to it. Good morning both to you, Jordan and Chris and Kylie and Madison. Good morning. All right, we'll be right back. All right, so let's see. How's everybody doing this morning? Let's see. Let's do a little music while we chill and wait.
A rugby shirt thing that I've had for years.
Yeah, I'm doing well. All right. Good. I'm doing well this morning, guys. Doing well. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. We'll get started here in a few minutes. Until then, enjoy a little John Mellencamp. Anybody know anything about John Mellencamp? Or, sorry, not John Mellencamp. Joe Walsh? What other band is Joe Walsh in? Anybody know? It's named after an animal. Specifically a bird animal, and it was a big rock band in the 80s. Let's see if anybody knows. Mr. Curtis would know very quickly. They're kind of a southern rock band. One of their famous hits was Hotel California. Any guesses? Joe Walsh was in another band in the 80s. It was named after an animal. What band was it? The Eagles. Very good talent. Very good. Alright. It is that time. Guys, I'm so excited. We got a lot of stuff we're covering today. There's going to be all kinds of things. Google Earth. You're going to see a video game. You're going to get to see an interactive map. So there's a lot going on today. And it's going to be coming at you kind of quick. And it's going to be taxing on my computer. So please, and, you know, technically speaking, I'm not the most sound with this streaming software just yet. So you're going to have to just bear with me, and we'll work through this all together. But it's a really cool lesson. It's something I really enjoy teaching, especially because we're talking about one of my favorite pieces of Roman history, and that is the Punic Wars. The Punic Wars are a time when we see Rome almost fail. And honestly, it was Rome's greatest moment of weakness, and it could have been exploited, they could have been destroyed, and somehow, throughout every expectation, throughout every opportunity to fail, the Romans somehow found a way to make it work. They somehow found a way to be successful. But we get to see some brilliant military strategy. We get to see some incredible stuff. And today, you're going to see what a battle may have looked like from a soldier's perspective on the ground. All right? So we're going to really get into it. And I'm super excited to be here with you guys. It's not so much PowerPoint as it's going to be a bunch of other stuff as well. All right, so before we get going, let's go through our normal stuff. Good morning and welcome to the Roman Republic. On Tuesday, we spoke about the government and life in the Republic. Today, we'll begin to study the Punic Wars and Roman military strategy. So, our agenda for the day, we're going through our welcome. Next, we'll have our expectation standards, central questions, and objectives. Then we're going to talk about the first Punic War. That'll take about 15 minutes. It'll actually probably take less than that. Then we'll talk about how Hannibal invades over the Alps, and we'll take a good Google Earth look at that. And then we're going to talk about the Battle of Trebia River and with Rome total war, and we'll talk about how there's an outcome to the First and Second Punic War, and a couple of the people that play major roles in that. So before, and then after that, of course, we'll have questions. So let's get into it. I'll go ahead and say good morning to a few people that just showed up. Good morning, Graham. Good morning, Talon. Good morning, Gus. Good morning, Peyton. Good morning, Verrill. I think I've gotten to everybody, but guys, can't wait. Let's get started. Let's check it out. My expectations for the day. Guys, take notes. Ask questions. Questions help us seek a deeper knowledge of topics. I want you to make connections to our previous lessons and civilizations. I want you to learn something new, and I want you to have fun. So those are my expectations. Let's make sure we meet those today. Standards. All right, standard number 3, again, is to recognize significant events, figures, and contributions of classical civilizations like Phoenicia, Greece, Rome, and Axum. All right, so we want to understand the factors that led to the Punic Wars, and we want to learn about Roman military history. All right, those are our objectives for the day. We'll see if we can meet them. Finally, what is our essential question? Our essential questions, we have 2 of them today. What led to Rome's massive expansion in the Mediterranean? And what made Hannibal successful against Rome? So 2 very important questions. Why was Rome able to grow, or how did Rome grow to become the most powerful empire in the ancient world? And what made Hannibal successful? Hannibal Barca, the greatest general that the Romans would ever face. How did he become successful against Rome? Are you guys ready to find out? Good, because I can't wait to tell you. So we've just finished our expectations, standards, essential questions, and objectives. Let's check out the first Punic War. But before we get into that, we want to keep in mind this date, 264 BC. All right, 264 BC. And now I'm going to put a little overlay in front of our PowerPoint. All right, so this is Rome in 300 BC. All right, this little red sliver right here. And we're going to zoom in a little bit on it. It's just going to decide. There we go. We can see the Roman Republic. It doesn't even control all of Italy in 300 BC. But we're going to see that by the time we get to 264 BC, so just 40 years, a little less than 40 years, Rome is going to control most of the peninsula. Those Greek colonies are going to start getting threatened, and they're going to start becoming part of the Roman Empire. And then Rome is going to turn its attention towards Sicily. Sicily is this island down here. It's both pink and orange. But let me show you who they're going up against. In orange, and we got to zoom out just to see them, all right, is Carthage. Everything that's orange on this map right here is Carthage. Carthage is absolutely massive. They're multiple times the size of Rome. They are the Mediterranean power of the day. They're the strongest navy of the day. They make the Athenians look tiny. And the Athenians are gone by now, right? Or the Athenians are there, but they're not the naval power they once were. Carthage is now the naval power. Carthage is where you want to be. If you want to go to a cool city, you go to Carthage. You want to see something cool, you go to Carthage. You want a civilization that is massive and really controls all of Africa, you go to Carthage. You go check them out. They're a pretty cool place. All right, but let's watch what happens to Rome as we get closer to 264 BC. So we're going to go to 280 BC. And in 280 BC, we can see that Rome has began to expand. Now, this is the Roman Republic. Look, they've moved up quite a bit in that short period of time. In just 20 years, they've taken a lot of territory. Let's get up to 270 BC. All right, now they control all of the Italian peninsula. The Greek city-states are gone. They've been pushed out. They've even been pushed out of this area here. Now, a very important town is Syracuse, and I want you to keep that in mind. Remember Syracuse, because it's very, very important. But now Rome is now a major power in the region. They're not just some tiny sliver of land. Now they control quite a massive area. Okay? Quite a massive area. They've taken out the different tribes that lived there, the Latins, the Etruscans, the Sabians. They're all gone. Now it's all just Rome. All right. And then once you get to 264 BC, all right, now we can see that Rome is poised to keep expanding. And where do they want to go? Well, they can't go north because they're faced with these massive mountain chain right here. They're faced with the Alps. So they really can't go north. Where can they go? Well, what if they just crossed this tiny piece of land to Sicily? And that's where they have their eyes set. They want to go and take over Sicily, and let's see what happens. So, the three Punic Wars. The Punic Wars, okay? Punic is the name for the people in Carthage. It's actually a slang term. It really wasn't a very nice term that the Romans used. But it's kind of like a slang term that means slave or lesser. And that's what they named the Carthaginians after it. So this was a knock. So when we call it the Punic Wars, it really was a knock against Carthage. But it's not like there's a Carthage today that can say anything about it, right? They were completely destroyed by the end of the Third Punic War. Sorry for the spoiler, guys. But the 3 Punic Wars between Carthage and Rome took place over nearly a century, so nearly 100 years, from 246 BC and ending with a Roman victory with the destruction of Carthage in 146 BC. Now, there's some peace treaties in between there. They stopped for a little bit. They stopped fighting. But for the most part, they fight each other for 100 years. Guys, that is an insanely long time, okay? That's an insanely long time. That's longer than any wars that we've seen in ancient history up until this point, all right? It's an insanely long time to be fighting somebody. That's 3 generations of people that grew up hating each other. The First Punic War. By the time the First Punic War broke out, Rome had become the dominant power throughout the Italian peninsula. We just looked at that on that interactive map. While Carthage, a powerful city-state in northern Africa, had established itself as the leading maritime power in the world. So Carthage was this huge naval power. We talked about that as well. And so the First Punic War begins in 264 BC when Rome interfered in a dispute on the Carthaginian-controlled island of Sicily. The war ended with Rome in control of both Sicily and Corsica and marked the empire's emergence as a naval as well as a land power. So, before the First Punic War, Rome really didn't have a navy. But there's a problem. When we look at this map, the biggest portion of this map is water. It's not land, it's water. Rome really doesn't have a navy when it comes to this war. They're really not prepared for it. And so most of the first combat begins here at Messina and Rhegium. And that really is what set off the war. The Romans were able to capture the city of Rhegium, and then the city of Messina gave up to them. And if you look where I'm at my mouse, and I don't know, yeah, you guys can see it. This tiny little area, this tiny little strait of water here, this is where the Romans were able to cross over quickly to Sicily. And that really scared the Carthaginians, because if we go back and look at that other map real quick, they control part of Sicily. All right? That little orange there, they control that. So the Romans being able to cross over in between the two really, really, really scared the Carthaginians, and it caused some major issues. At the same time, the Romans are able to come into the city of Syracuse and are able to take it over. And once they take over Syracuse, the Romans begin to start fighting with the Carthaginians and trying to expel them from the island of Sicily. And here it's spelled Sicililla, which is the Latin for Sicily. So the Romans come to Sicily. They're able to win some major victories on the ground, and then they start winning them at sea. The Romans realize that there's no way they can keep up with the Carthaginians when it comes to ramming ships. Remember, I told you ships used to ram into each other, and that's how they fought. So the Romans took this this little like drawbridge type thing. I want you to imagine a bridge, and they put it at the front of the boat, and they would slam it down onto the deck of an enemy ship, and it would get stuck into their boat, and so the Romans could just cross over and easily start attacking the boat and killing the men on it. So their whole goal was to board the other boat, and they did that using a special device that they implemented on the front of their boats in order to do it. It's like a drawbridge with a big metal spike in the end of it. And the Romans used it very, very, very effectively to board the other boat, and that's where they'd go and carry out their combat. So, the First Punic War, we're really not going to get too much in depth with it. It was kind of a shorter war. Not a short war, but it was a war that really isn't what I really want to show you guys about the Punic Wars. I really want to get into the Second Punic War, and I got a lot to show you for that. So Rome wins. They had more resources. They had better commanders overall. They had innovations in naval building and naval combat. Rome did have some major losses. They lost 100,000 men in one storm. 100,000 men in one storm, guys. The storms were brutal in the Mediterranean Ocean, and both the Romans and the Carthaginians lost hundreds of thousands of men at different times into the ocean where they drowned. So it was just a very tough war. It had massive losses. Carthage couldn't overcome that. They couldn't overcome the loss of people. The Romans, on the other hand, they could, and they had the resources to build more ships. They had the resources to get more men. They had the resources to make weapons and armor, and the Carthaginians started running out. They started becoming very, very poor, and the Romans, they just had money to burn. And so they did. Okay, so Rome wins. The Second Punic War. The Second Punic War, a.k.a. the Hannibalic War, and I'll tell you why that is in a minute, was fought between Carthage and Rome between 218 and 201 BC. While the First Punic War had been fought largely over the control of Sicily, the Second Punic War involved confrontations in Spain, Italy, Sicily, Sardinia, and North Africa. And to give you a good showing of what this map looked like, so after the First Punic War, Rome gets quite a bit of territory. They get all of Sicily and Sardinia. And so let's fast forward a little bit to 261. That should show, not 2,261, 261. And that should show us the height of that, so it should be, go 254. Gotcha. Oh, okay. Sorry, guys. Yeah, the map won't update past 270. But the island of Corsica, which is right here, and Sicily, right here, come under Roman control following the First Punic War. They're able to take that over, and that becomes their property. All right. Good. Okay. So, the Romans now control Sicily and Sardinia. And so they're able to control this land and really create quite an impressive empire, or they're starting the growth of an empire. And so what we see here is that the Second Punic War is going to be fought by major generals, and these are people like Hannibal, one of the most gifted commanders in history, possibly one of the greatest commanders in history, and I'll show you why here in a second. But the Romans also had their own great general, and that was Scipio Africanus, and he won a stunning victory, beating Hannibal in his own town. All right, he beat Hannibal outside of Carthage. I mean, absolutely stunning victory. But Hannibal had some incredible ones, and we're going to experience what it would have been like to be Hannibal ourselves. We're going to be Hannibal, and we're going to command men to fight the Roman legions, and I'm going to have to break down to you what a Roman legion looked like. So let's dive into that. But first, let me give you a little bit about Hannibal, why I pull up Google Earth. So Hannibal was a general in Carthage, okay? And he grew up hating Rome. In fact, remember I told you the First Punic War, the Second Punic War, and the Third Punic War take over 100 years. Hey, good morning, Mr. Coward. The word for Damascus in Latin is Mr. Canelo has Damascus. That's how you say it. All right, it's called Mr. Canelo has Damascus. Now, here's Carthage today. All right, so again, Hannibal grew up in Carthage, and he hated the Romans. He really, really, really hated the Romans because they killed his dad. So he swore a blood vengeance on him. He cut his hand, and he swore by the gods of Carthage that he was going to enact his revenge on Rome. And so his family actually gets kicked out of Carthage when he was younger. And they got sent to Spain, where he grew up. And so Hannibal wanted the war to kick back. He wanted it back. And so what he did is he invaded a town in Spain that the Romans controlled. And he completely destroyed it, wiped it out, killed everybody in the town, burned the town to the ground. I mean, extremely, extremely violent. And the Carthaginians, instead of saying, oh, well, that guy's not our guy, they said, heck yeah, way to go. You're the man, Hannibal. Let's do this. And so Hannibal sets out. And he goes across the Alps into Rome. Now, here's a problem. When you're in Spain, it's very difficult to get to Rome. And the reason is because of these massive, massive mountains right here. And these are the Alps. And let's see if we can get a good picture of it. Yeah, this should be a good one. All right, these inhospitable mountains that block every path. Hannibal's got a problem. He's got a massive army, but he doesn't have the ships to move them to Rome. He's got war elephants, about 100 of them. He's got all kinds of equipment and gear and men and soldiers from all over the Carthaginian Empire, and he's got to get them through the Alps in the wintertime. In fact, there's a story that at one point his troops get stuck in a mountain pass in the middle of a storm, and people are literally dying around him. They're dying around him. And Hannibal is stuck. There's this giant boulder in the way, and they can't move it. They can't do anything about it. So what Hannibal tells his men to do is he tells them to build a big fire on top of the rock. And so they build this huge fire on top of the rock. And then he tells them to put it out and pour water on it. And so this fire had been burning for about a day. They take all the wood off it, and they dump water on it. And the heat exchange was so quick that it split the rock in half, and Hannibal's troops are able to pass through the Alps in the wintertime to surprise the Romans. The Romans had very little warning when Hannibal showed up outside of the town of Turin. All right, in 261 or in 218 BC, they had very, very little warning, and so in order to prepare, they have to begin a strategy to defeat Hannibal. So they send a massive army, and they're going to meet Hannibal at the river Tribia, and let's see what happens. So, this is where the technical difficulties are going to get a little bit interesting for you guys. So you're going to have to bear with me for a second. Thank you, Mr. Coward. I'm excited to use this. All right. If it looks kind of crazy here in a second, that's all right. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Display capture. And we're going to switch. Okay. Give it 1 second, guys, while the computer catches up. Let's try this. We'll just restart it. Just a minor second, guys, while we get this whole thing going. Okay, decided it's going to close itself then, I guess. While we wait, look at that beautiful picture. What a transition that was. Alright, let's see. There is... Just wait. You'll have to wait for the magic word today. You'll just have to wait. Okay. Let's see if I can get this figured out now. The sinews of war are infinite money. Cicero. I know it's up at your top left screen. I can't really make it any bigger. Alright. Let's see if we can get the sound to come through to you guys. No, I don't think we're going to get it. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, so just because I don't want to get blown out. All right, we are going to be serving as Hannibal. All right, and with Hannibal, he's got some interesting stuff, and we're going to be facing a Roman legion. All right, this is the Roman legion under a guy called Marcus Gaius. There's a lot of Marcus Gaiuses in ancient Rome. Can you guys see what's on the screen real quick? Just checking, because I've lost some control over what I can see. Armistices abroad are little value unless they are prudent counsel at home. Also from Cicero. All right, can you guys see what's going on? Just go ahead and type that into the chat bar. Just want to make sure you can see. And you can still hear me too. That's important. All right. So Hannibal has crossed the Alps with his army, and Hannibal's army is going to be in white, okay? There are these guys that are wearing white. There's his war elephants. He's crossed the Alps. He started crossing the Alps with 200 elephants. By the time he got through the Alps, he was down to about 10, all right? So I did some research on that last night. He started with 10,000 elephants and ended up with 10. So what you're seeing right now is Hannibal has a smaller force. He's a little bit worried about what he's facing, so he decides he has to lay a trap in order to beat the Romans here. And so what he does is the Romans are encamped across the river Tribia. And so he sends across his Numidian cavalry. And these guys are lightly armored. They carry a bunch of spears, and they just throw them, and that's what they do. They're skirmishers. So what he does is he sends them to go fake an attack against the Romans. We call this a feint. So he has them charge across the river at night or early in the morning, right around 5 o'clock. They make a bunch of noise outside the Roman military camp. They wake the Romans up. There's a lot of screaming and yelling, and then they race back across the river. The Romans send out their entire legion, as you can see them crossing the river right now, through a very cold river. And so the Roman force is pulled out of their camp, cold, hungry, a little bit tired, because they kept this up for most of the night, and ready to fight. Now, Hannibal has known this is going to happen, and so he prepared the terrain to best suit him. Right now you can see he's got the high ground. He's up on a hill. And he's also laid forces in the woods. He laid his best cavalry in the woods and prepared them to fight. And so I'm going to try to do the best I can to embody Hannibal here for you guys to see. And I can't wait to give you a personal view. But before we talk about how the battle goes down, I really want to show you about how the Romans set up their military in order to fight. So before this starts, we're actually going to get a nice little pause right here, and I can tell you a little bit about the Roman army itself. All right, so this is the Roman legion. All right, this is every male citizen in Rome has to serve in this army, and they have to do it for a certain number of years, and each has a specific job. All right, so Hannibal's trap at the river Tribia has been set. And now the game's going to give us a little pause, and I can show you what Hannibal did to be successful. But he's really got to use those war elephants well to be especially effective. All right. So the game has paused itself, which is good, because I want to show you guys a little bit about the Romans. All right, the first line of Romans is called the Vestias. Now, or Veletes. The Veletes are the youngest guys in the Roman army. They are typically in their teenage years to their 20s. They carry just a little spear or a couple little spears called pilla or javelins. They're to throw a couple of these and then run away. They have a little sword, they have a shield, but their main job is to throw their spear and run away. It's a good way to get experience in a battle and not really put yourself in much danger because you're going to be throwing your spear at other people throwing their spears. The likelihood of you getting hit isn't that large. And really, these guys, their only job was to attack with their spears. After that, they're supposed to get out of the way and let the Romans do the rest of the damage. If they kill a few people, great. If they don't, whatever. These are the younger citizens who lack experience and most of the time money to fight in the rest of the army. So this is where they get a little experience. They wear the wolf on their head. You can see this guy has a wolf on his head. And this is the first line of the Romans' military. They're really not supposed to do much other than throw those little spears and get back. And then you can see them there. All right, now we go to the main line of the Romans. And these are called the Hastati. The Hastati are among the younger men in the early Roman Republic. So right after you get done being a Vesti, you get to become a Hastati. You get a full shield. You get a couple pila. The pila was a spear that the Romans threw that was designed that when it hit somebody or something, the point of it would break and bend, and then their enemy couldn't pick it back up and throw it at you. So that's one of the problems with throwing weapons, right? If you throw a dodgeball, and you guys love dodgeball, I've seen you out there playing. I know if I went out there, I'd take you all out. Mr. Coward and I would have done it easily. But if you guys know in dodgeball, if you throw the ball at somebody, there's an opportunity for them to pick up that same ball and throw it back at you, right? Right? So, Val, if you threw a dodgeball at me, I'd pick it back up and hit Justin in the face with it. Because that's what I'd do. Alright? So the Hastati spear, the pilum, was specifically designed by the Romans to be thrown and get stuck in a shield or get stuck in armor. Even if it doesn't stick, the point's probably going to break. It's made out of lead. It's kind of soft. So it just breaks, and it's not really a weapon they can use against you. But ideally what happens is you throw it and it gets stuck in somebody's shield. It has a barb in it. And if it gets stuck in their shield, they either have to lose their shield or take time and try to figure out how to pull the spear point out, which is very complicated and not something you can do in a battle. So the idea was you throw it in the spear. So say they keep the spear in their shield and walk with it. Well, if they're walking with it, the Romans would just walk up to that spear that probably the pole is in the ground, the wooden part of the pylon is probably touching the ground. They'd step on that, pull your shield arm down, and cut your head off. Pretty violent way to do it, but it was very successful. The Hastia are pretty heavily armored. They wear a chainmail shirt. You can see that on their body on the right. And this is where you would go once you're a little bit more seasoned. Your armor was given to you. Your shield, your helmet, your pylons and sword were all given to you. And they made up the main rank of the Roman military. Following them, these guys have a lot of battle experience. They're in their mid-20s to early 30s. These guys are called the Principes, or Principals. See if it let me pull it up. Here we go. The Principes. The Principes made up the strength of the Roman military. These guys were armored similarly to the Hastia, or the Hastati, but they carried a little bit stronger armor, which they were able to buy for themselves. They had made a bunch of money by this point. They were very well trained. They were there to finish the battle. They the first line was supposed to wear them down. This is the second true line of the Romans. They're there to win the battle. Once they've come in, the battle's pretty much over. They're gonna win, no matter what. At this point, the battle's over, and they're very, very formidable forces. Fantastic, some of the best military forces in the world. Finally, the last group, and pretty interesting group, all right, is the oldest men on the battlefield. These guys are in their mid-30s, and they're called the Tria. Now, the Tria are tough, heavy spearmen who make up the third line, and they're the most senior part of a Roman legion. They carry a long hoplite style. Remember, the hoplites were the Greek soldiers. They carry these long spears, and a gladius, which was their sword. They are the oldest veteran soldiers, and they're well armored. Hardly surprising, given that they're also drawn from the richest section of society. So these guys are rich. They fought for a long time. They're very strong. But there's an old Roman saying, and that is, if the Terrari have to go into the battle, it means the battle's not going well. They hated putting these guys in. Even though they were the most experienced and probably the best soldiers on the battlefield, if the Romans had to put them in, the battle wasn't going well. You wanted your first three, you wanted your Principesses and your Hastati to win the battle. You did not want to put these guys in. It was a bad day if they had to go onto the battlefield. Of course, the Romans aren't complete without a small detachment of cavalry. These were called equestes, all right, and they would be with the Roman general, and they followed with him. Pretty good cavalry unit. Okay. So, let's see. I just want to show you the size difference real quick. You see how large that Roman force is? Well, the Carthaginians' force is much, much smaller. So I need to do a couple things before we start this battle. I need to go ahead and get my forces ready because I don't want to lose. So we're going to go ahead and move these war elephants. Uh-oh. Oops. Get that back. He doesn't like it when I click near off the screen, guys. Sorry about that. I need my war elephants over here. Alright. Okay. I'm telling them what to do before the battle starts. Because once it starts, there's not much time. Alright. I want them over there. I want these guys there. Yeah, that's perfect. I want him. Hannibal had these guys move here when the battle started. Okay. I think we're ready. Okay, everyone's where they're supposed to be. Hannibal, you come back here. Alright. You guys ready? You're going for Rome? Uh-oh. I hope not. Okay. The battle has started. So the Romans are going to advance. I'm going to have my spearmen throw their little spears. I don't need them to do much. They're just kind of a distraction. They're not really there. Now, I told you before, Hannibal hid some guys in the woods. So the Romans don't know that these guys are here. And they don't know that my other side is there either. But you can see those Vestati, they're running up, they're leaving. Alright, now I'm going to send my cavalry that's hidden in the woods over here. They're not very good cavalry. They're really light, so I'm going to send them to go fight the Romans over there. My elephants are moving very slowly into position. And the center of my line is preparing for the Roman charge. Oh, my cavalry is doing a terrible job over there, but that's okay. They don't have to do much. They just need to distract those Romans. Alright. My war elephants are getting ready. As soon as the Roman legions, these three groups, come into contact, I'll show you the power that war elephants actually have. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and start springing the trap a little bit. So I'm going to send my cavalry into that Roman cavalry right there. And now Hannibal has them exactly where he wants them. So I'm going to pause it real quick. Okay. So, like I said before, Hannibal's trap is set. The Romans have marched into a valley, and Hannibal has forces behind him now, which is not something the Romans really were able to deal with. I don't know why it's not letting me go that way. Uh-oh. Okay. So he's got him where he wants him. Alright. Now I'm sending my cavalry, and they're going to come in behind the Romans. And now it's time for the elephants to come in. And they're moving at double speed to attack. Alright. So, I paused it again. I want to give you a bird's eye view of what the battle looked like. Or not bird's eye view, but a man's view of what the battle looked like. And play. So here they go. And you see the missiles, you can see them fighting. And that will be a good view if this stops lagging up. Here come the war elephants. Just absolutely crushing the enemy lines, working their way through them. The most terrifying force on the battlefield. Those Romans are just breaking. They're just breaking. They want no part of those war elephants. Alright, I'm going to keep them moving down the line. They're going to come attack right here. My cavalry at this point is coming in. We're going to go finish off that group. We're just going to go ahead and finish off this group that's making that little last stand right there. Oh, they're turning around. They're attacking my elephants again. Well, we're not going to let that happen, are we? Got to zoom out so I can get a better view of what I got left. Alright. Okay, this group, they're finishing off a small group of Romans. They just routed them. A rout means to turn the enemy. Alright, so they just turned the enemy, they're running away. Alright. So, in all sense and purposes, the day is won. Alright, the day is over. The Romans are defeated by Hannibal. There's a few Romans left. Let's mop them up, guys. Let's go ahead and take care of them. Alright, we'll go get those guys. This is called Rome Total War. Oh, I still have these guys right here. Wow. I can go take care of them. Alright. And that should do it. We're going to go ahead and chase the Romans off the battlefield. Hannibal really didn't. The way Hannibal did it, there really were no Romans left to chase. They absolutely crushed the Romans. And it was one of the most tragic defeats that the Romans would face in that war. It was really hard to come back, and Hannibal actually ends up doing this 2 and 3 times. He's able to make some massive victories over much larger Roman forces. Remember, he lost most of his men crossing the Alps. So for him to make a victory like this truly was astounding. All right? It truly was astounding. And, yep, there goes the Roman general. All right. I guess there's a guy to attack right here. Oh, there's a couple guys. This is all that's left of the Romans. And then one more time, we'll just watch these elephants just come through here. That's unfortunate part about elephants, guys, and you just saw it there. It's hard to control them when they go through your own forces. They'll run over anything and everything they want to run over, and that should end the battle. Alright. I don't see any more Romans on the field. There's 7, they're broken. It should tell me I'm one. Alright. Thank you. Maybe I can go away. We did it. Alright, so the Romans won the day. And here we'll switch back. And or the Romans. The day was won by the Carthaginians. They're able to easily defeat the Romans. Hannibal proves that he's the greatest general in the ancient world over and over again until he gets back to Africa, where he has a much larger force and faces off a guy named Scipio Africanus. Now, Scipio Africanus, his dad actually died at the Battle of Lake Gethsemane. Hannibal kills his dad, and so he squares revenge. He catches him outside of Carthage, and he uses a pretty advanced weapon to beat the elephants. So Hannibal has this huge elephant force, and so we actually see a pretty smart move by Scipio. What he does is he gets a bunch of guys to play really loud trumpets. It scares the elephants. The elephants turn around and run over their own men, and Africanus wins the day in quite a brilliant strategy. So he understood that the weapons were both a weapon and there's a weapon with a double-edged sword, meaning that while they may be good on the battlefield, they are not. There may be great weapons on the battlefield. They can also end up hurting you. Okay, so double-edged swords means they can cut both ways. Elephants can cut both ways. They can turn around and run people over on their way if they're running away. So guys, that is actually it today, and there is no magic word because there is no quiz today. I wanted to give you guys a day off. I think you guys have done a spectacular job with history so far. I'm really, really happy with you guys being here today. If you're more interested about that game, it's called Rome Total War, and it has a really cool. It gives you a really cool perspective of ancient warfare. And for me, it's just a great tool because I had a teacher who taught me the battle of the river and Tiberias River, and he showed us with little metal miniatures. All right, and so I showed you with a game that was able to show the same thing, but the way he showed it was really, really spectacular, and it really meant a lot to me. So for you guys today, I'm not giving you any formatives or any assignments. I think you guys have done a wonderful job this year and this semester, and I've been really, 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 really happy to teach you guys, and I miss you a bunch, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again. So, I'm looking forward to catch up with you guys later. I'll be on again today at 1 to 2 to answer any questions that you may have about anything in the Punic Wars. Again, we're not going to have a quiz today. So that's it for history for this week. Next week, I have some fun projects for you. We're pretty much done with any major learning in history this year. I think you guys have done an awesome job. I'm as proud as I can be of you. And we'll get into the Empire. I'll tell you some cool stories about Julius Caesar, and we'll get into the Roman Empire on Tuesday. But that will be probably the last big lecture that we have So I hope you guys have enjoyed history. I hope it's become a subject you've enjoyed. I know it's been difficult. I know you've had to take a bunch of notes, but I hope you've learned something or you remember something that you loved. And that was my goal at the beginning of the year, is to make sure you guys found something in history that you end up enjoying studying, or something that meant a lot to you. And I hope you found it and you've enjoyed that. All right, guys, we will talk more about this later. You have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you. Have a good one.